All right. Hello, guys. We're here and we are 1 hour exactly behind what should be our class time. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Right. Which is not good. But you guys are hearing me okay?
Yes, sir.
Right. So I was saying that we are 1 hour behind what should be our class time, which is not good. But we will make it through nonetheless. We have solved all the scheduling issues, but some of the stuff that were set up was already in motion, so we have to kind of like use this week to resolve a lot of them. So next week, this 12 o'clock class will not intersect with another class. However, we have other challenges that we need to solve for Advanced Computing 1, right? I'm not your only lecturer for this module, but we're going to do the best that we can do until all of the paperwork stuff is sorted out for the other lecturer that will be coming in on board. So I don't know if you guys saw on the website, you saw I put something that says for this week we'll be having our practical and lecture in this lecture class basically. Right? So you guys noticed that?
Yeah, see it on the website.
Right. So we're going to be like, I don't know, we're going to do a medley. You ever cook a meal and the meal is called medley before, you know? So it has all sorts of stuff mixed up in the same pot. So we're going to be doing a medley. But my objective is to keep all of you guys on schedule. So we don't want anything, our objective is to have nothing intersect with your major your studio projects, which will come further on the semester. All right, so if you notice what is on our schedule, right, remember how this thing works out. Let me bring up my trusty module layout so you guys, so that we can kind of refresh ourselves to what will happen for this module. Advanced computing, there we go. Advanced computing 1 is where we need to be. So progress. What happened? Something happened. All right, I'm back. You guys hearing me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
okay,
I hear you.
All right, good. Right, so what we're going to be doing is, if you look on our schedule for this module, there we go. Advanced computing 1. We will see where for our timeline above, let's kind of zoom in here. So in order to keep everything on schedule, kind of zoom in here a little bit. Right. Okay, good. Here we go. So we are going to be discussing visual language and no, sorry, this is where we are. Right. So we have a class activity that we're going to look on today that has to do with our assignment, which is the advanced visualization. And remember how we're going to do this? We're going to have like a little class activity / discussion, and then we're going to have that presentation where you guys show me how you interpreted your plans. And then we're going to break for another class discussion, and we're going to have it again. So we're going to do this like twice for the semester, basically. All right. Now, I did do a layout. If you guys have looked on the mirror board, I did go through and mark all of the submissions that you guys made. I want you to also take a browse over on the class mirror board as well. Everybody knows how to access that, right? You go on the class website and then you go over to class whiteboard link. All right. Now, if you notice, for everybody has a board, right? And let's say, for example, for Christopher has submitted a technique to mimic. He has submitted a communication objective, which has not been approved because of a reason or not. Okay, so for example, if your communication objective has not been approved, or if it's wrong, please don't go ahead and start to invest all of your work in doing invest all of your time to start the work, right? Your stuff needs to be approved first, right? Some of you might notice that your technique that you select is fine and your communication objective is fine. That's a green light. That means you can start. Some of us has not submitted anything as yet, so Jackson, you here with me? Oh, maybe you submitted, but after I mark this. So I don't know. All right. You guys are following me?
Sir, we're supposed to submit. I thought it was just the panel.
Oh no, it's all of them. We're supposed to submit all of them, and
I searched out and selected some of some other images. So I was just waiting for your instructions.
Right. So I'm going to go through again at some point later today and add, go back through the submissions and add those that I do not see. Nevertheless, you know that we are doing the 2D plan and the 2D, 3D section first, right? So I mean, you want to make sure that those are approved and in the bag. And you are to submit the other two as well. But, you know, like we literally need to start on these ASAP. All right. So when you guys go on the board, if you notice that there's an issue, for example, with Robert's, this is what you submitted for your 3D perspective technique to mimic, and there's a X here, which means that this image doesn't qualify for that. And remember, for those of you who might have a question mark or an X, remember that the perspective, the objective of that is you are highlighting a structure in a dense surrounding. Well, it can be an element as well. It doesn't have to be a structure. I remember we looked at some examples. So the challenge with this is that it's not like in a dense surrounding, if you know what I mean. All right. So, and some of you might have gotten question marks. The question mark means, for example, a lot of you for your X-ray images, you submitted a technique and a communication objective. The truth is that for the perspective and the X-ray, you don't really need a communication objective, let me give you an example. Right, let's take a look on the handout. There we go. Right, on the handout, let's make this full screen. Right, so on the handout, for example, for challenge 3, right, it says in this challenge you are to select a 3D perspective image to mimic. The 3D perspective image must highlight an objective amongst a dense visual context, right? So those two contrasting parts are important, all right? It can't be something in the middle of nothing, in the middle of nowhere, or, you know, it needs to be something dense and then something is highlighted amongst that. Now, some of us would think that, okay, that means that it needs to be an aerial image like this, but no. Suppose you are highlighting an elevation, a window in an elevation. We don't have the time for me to bring up those examples, but as long as you have, I'll come into you. Just remember this concept: needle in a haystack. What is your needle? What is your haystack? So in this case, it's a building, and that's the needle, and the haystack is the city. But it could be that it's, I don't know, a bunch of, it's like a very dense elevation, and there is something that's highlighted in it. It could be a stack of floors. Maybe there are 50 floors, and one element in one of the floors is highlighted. All right, you had a question?
I think Ashley was before me.
Yeah, Ashley.
I checked my board. I saw with the exploded what I need to fix. I saw the question mark, but I had submitted 2 images for the 2D floor plan, the one to mimic the visual to mimic and the communicative, but they're not there. I was asking if you saw it or I need to resubmit.
Okay, if you're not seeing it, then that means it came in after I had marked it.
Okay.
Right. So I'm going to go through again today, and mark it.
Okay.
All right. And right. So this is why. Oh yeah. There was another question.
Can the dense area be like in a forest or like
Yeah, anything.
around?
It could be. There is one class that it was something in the sky, and the sky was the dense thing. There was somebody that picked something. I don't remember what it was. It was, but it was in the sky. So as long as there is an element of density, and then there is something in that dense visual that is highlighted, then that image is a go. So you don't, and maybe I need to remove it, but you don't really need. Oh well, I did remove it. You don't need to submit a communication objective, because more likely the image that you choose is going to have the objective in there. And the same thing for the X-ray. 90% of all the images that you choose does, for example, it either represents a structural system, or it highlights a major interior element, or it highlights a major space within the building. Usually, most of you. So let's look at some of the examples of the pictures selected. Let's go back here. For example, this image here. This is great because it's more of a city and an aerial. It almost never passed, but it just, because it needed a bit more density, but fine. Obviously, this big red thing is contrasting with this very light surrounding. This big red building. Okay, like this example, this doesn't have a dense visual surrounding, so that's why. Is this PicArt? I can't remember. Yeah, right, PicArt. So you need to choose back a different image. Oh, and for example, for the X-ray, if you notice, for example, this one, I have ticked that the technique is good and the communication objective is good. And it's not like they submitted a communication objective, because as long as the objective is met in this image, then you are good to go. And remember what the objective of this one said. It said that these three things: it must represent some kind of structural system used in the building, illustrate a major important element, or highlight a major important space, right? So we go back here. I mean, it does highlight a space within the building, so that's fine. So that pass. In cases where persons give me two images, I don't know which one you want to choose. So you don't need to, like, both of these highlight a space inside the building viewed from outside. So both of these are good, but I only need one.
Sir, how should
Right?
we let you know?
Oh, coming out one hour wrong with mine, no, sir.
Right, so I only need one. So actually in this class, I'm going to just edit that and you just tell me which one, because you don't need to like submit again. And a lot of them, same thing for this, you need to pick one. And yeah, and for some of these others, they are pretty fine. Like this one here, like this needs to be a perspective. So this is obviously, I mean, this is more for this one here. And this one is not a X-ray exploded. I mean, this doesn't count, as you know. So yeah. So I'm going to.
You can edit the mirror word. And just delete one.
No, it's not for editing, because we're actually going through the process of you guys selecting an image. So the editing capability is going to be turned off until I have everybody's submission, right? So everybody needs to be fully on board. But I will just, for those of you who have like two things selected, I will just sort that out with you today. All right.
You can delete the first one for me still.
Okay. All right. For this one?
Oh, I don't mind that, sir.
All right. Exactly. But we're going to get to that. The first thing we're going to do today is we need to, now that most of us have selected our images, I need you guys to understand a concept of how to identify the process by which you're going to mimic these images, right? And I know some of you were brave in selecting something that you have no idea how you're going to achieve. Don't worry. That is what is expected of you in this module. You're supposed to be cutting edge. You're supposed to be selecting something. That brings me to another point. There was one image here. I think it was a section. Let me try and find it. Here we go. So why did this one get an X? And we can go to court if you want. Like if you really want to know how to mimic this image and you believe that you selected an image that qualified, then we can talk about it, right? But for example, in this image by Graham, it's just too basic. Like it's borderline. Like there are elements in it that does push it, but it falls a little below pushing the visual boundary of representing architecture. It needs to push against that boundary. Right? Graham, are you here today?
Yes, sir. I saw it.
Right.
That's all.
Right. I mean, there are some unique elements, like the clouds have a nice effect to them that is unique, and the surroundings. So it's like it could almost pass, but it's just that it just needs to be a bit more boundary pushing.
Okay, sir, I have a question. I tend to lean more to patterns and textures, right? So that's why I chose most of my stuff tend to look like that. Can I? What would you recommend if I wanted to stay somewhat in the same style, but
Well,
to
no,
push
okay. How dare I tell you what style you want to match, right? So I mean, if you truly and honestly say that this is something that I want to do, then fine. My default lecturer brain is just saying, this look is a little too. I mean, it's borderline, so it can pass. But I needed you to give me an explanation as to why you chose this technique.
Okay.
And
there's another example that I have another one saved, so I'll just resubmit it, and if that one's a little bit better, then we can go with that. I think this is a bit simpler. It's a bit wide.
I mean, and look, I mean, there are some unique elements in here that would give you a little bit of a challenge, especially having to do with the context. It's a kind of 1 point perspective, and it's very rich with context elements, and it's a contrast to, for example, it's giving you like construction details, but with an artistic. It's heavy art and heavy construction at the same time.
Yeah.
So that is actually pretty cool, and that is something that will help you out in CSA, because a lot of the times, a lot of us might show images that looks good, but how do we show that we know how to build this thing? And this image does the two. So I would not be against you using this image. I would not. I just wanted to know the reason behind it. So, I mean, it does sound like a pretty good reason, and you really and truly want to use this technique, then fine. I shall change this to a tick.
Thank you.
Right. You copy again. There we go. That takes care of that. But generally, I just wanted to say that what you guys select should also be kind of pushing the boundaries, and and there are some that I like as well. But anyway, we're not going to go into that because we are already behind time. Do you guys have a class right after this? Nope. Okay. And okay, cool. And I have a class coming up after this, so not directly after, but there are some key things that I want to discuss today. There's an important concept that I want you guys to grasp, because remember, it is next week that you are going to show me your mimic, right? And the mimics that you're going to show me next week is going to be your floor plan technique and your section. All right, so just those two. And I hope you guys remember, it's not about the final image. What we're looking at is we need evidence, we need the work to be there, but I will not be grading it. I will be looking at your methods and how you came up with the method to achieving the image. And you need to show me the image that you achieve using that method as well. All right, so, okay. Now, if you notice on the class mirror board, there are two things that are here. And we're going to go through this in a bit. And this is something that I want you guys to watch when you get a chance. This was actually a workshop put on by CASA. And it got different industry technical persons who do a lot of visual work to show some techniques that they use to do the visual work. Some of them are past students. I did one with Illus. No, I don't remember. I did one of these as well. I talked about techniques that are used to achieve certain things. Oh, I talked about InDesign. But there are some nice tips and tricks that were discussed here that were pretty cool. And a lot of you guys can really use this in CSA. Now, we're not going to look at this in class. You look at this in your own time. But what we're going to discuss is there is a workflow to figuring out how in the world am I going to achieve this, to mimic this image that I've selected, right? And as long as you follow these steps, it doesn't matter your skill level in a particular program. What is important is that you are going down the right road. All right. Okay. Now, before I talk about this, I think I do know I need to talk about choosing the right programs, right? And by no means, these tools are not the only tools that exist in the world. Let's see. I can assume most, if not everybody, has used the first 3 tools. Most, if not everybody, has maybe used Lumion. Anybody use 3D Max? Any 3D Max fans in the house? Show by raising of hand or thumbs up. Matthew? Anybody else? Nobody? Okay. Okay, I'm not gonna ask you SketchUp, as I propose most people know to use SketchUp. Revit is on your curriculum, so I expect that you would know to use it, even if it is not your daily tool. And AutoCAD, I'm gonna assume that everybody here has used AutoCAD before. Alright? Is that a safe assumption? Okay. Now the reason I handpicked these tools, right? Okay, not everybody. Fine, okay, no problem. The reason I have chosen these tools here is not because these are the only programs, but what they represent, right? So for example, these are ways in which you can edit digital illustrations. Remember the term digital. I want you guys to start to think broad now. Digital doesn't only mean drawings or modeling. It doesn't only mean photoshopping an image. And it is not only editing text, right? If you think about how we use computer in the realm of digital design, there are people who use code to represent digital design. There are web developers that don't use Photoshop. What they use is zeros and ones and codes, and when they type that code, graphics appear. There are persons that use Word and PowerPoint and InDesign to do graphical stuff, and maybe they never used Photoshop before. So what I'm trying to do is to kind of paint this picture that everything that has to do with digital design that you can do on the computer must fall in one of these categories. And the key thing is for you to be able to look at an image and reverse engineer it and say, oh, I know the 5 major categories that created that image. All right, you guys following me so far?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go down and explain a little better. So for example, we use Photoshop to edit photos. Most of us know that, but most of us fall victim to Photoshop being the only software on the planet. If we're doing a Word document, we're using Photoshop. If we're editing video, we're doing Photoshop. If we're doing 3D, we're using Photoshop. I mean, maybe I'm being a bit extreme, but Photoshop primary purpose is for doing photo editing. Illustrator, which is usually the underdog, but it is so important, perhaps even more important than Photoshop, to the type of digital work that you guys do, right? Because you guys work with vector just as much as how a graphic artist works with photo. But yet still you have most of the architecture students will gravitate to Photoshop. But you guys are not editing pixels a lot. You guys are editing vector lines a lot. Line work is like super important to you guys, to us, I should say. InDesign, right, is used to edit multiple documents. Remember, we do this from DDM days, and I'm not teaching you how to use these programs, but by now, everybody, I wouldn't expect persons to be using Illustrator to do a 20-page document, right? At this stage that you are now, you guys should be able to use a program for what it is intended for, or use the greatest strength of a program to achieve an objective. So we know Lumion. Okay, what about Max? Let's skip ahead to Max, because not a lot of us use 3D Max, and that's fine, because the interesting thing about this assessment is that you guys don't have to be an expert in any one of these categories. You just need to be able to visit when you can and know what each category do. So Max is used to do advanced modeling, right? Also used for rendering and animating as well. Now the keyword there is advanced modeling. So for example, and I know that if there are SketchUp fans you would argue, but if you were creating a very advanced or complex model, you would want to more lean towards a program that does advanced modeling more than a program that does basic modeling. But what is the interesting thing is that the inverse we usually forget, especially as students. If we need to do something basic, think about a concept. You know, I have a concept for my building and I want to sketch out that concept. Well, I would argue, why are you using an advanced modeling software to sketch out a basic concept? All right, you guys see where I'm going?
Yes, sir.
So at the stage that you guys are at now, it's not about, you know, well, SketchUp is the best program, or 3D Max is the best program, or, you know, Photoshop is the best. You know, it's just about that. Look, Photoshop is for dealing with pixels. Illustrator is for dealing with vector. 3D Max is for dealing with advanced modeling. Revit is to do BIM modeling. What is BIM modeling different from basic modeling? That's a good question that I think I will throw to Gina. What is the difference between BIM modeling and basic modeling, in your opinion?
Do you mean Gianna, sir? Or is it an actual?
Say again?
You're referring to me, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, Gianna is the name.
Oh, Gianna. Why am I calling you Gina?
It's okay.
It's third year. I should be like used to that by now. Anyway. Yes, Gianna. Yeah, man.
Okay, so to my understanding, the difference is really the complexities. So adding different layers to kind of transition the model to a real world setting. So adding different mechanics, like adding engineering in a sense, and construction documentation, all of that to the model for like the transition from the model to construction drawing or an approval drawing, stuff like that.
Okay, I'm going to try and pick from that the things that you said that are close to the target, right? There is a hint though in the answer for this question. Oh wait, before I give it away, let's throw it out again. Lorenzo, what do you think is the difference between BIM
Pardon,
modeling
sir?
and basic modeling. The difference.
The basic modeling piece, sir, that much work don't really go into it. It's just kind of to grasp out something to look. But with the BIM modeling, it's done more detail because they actually want to see the material and how everything works out.
Okay, but you give the same answer as Gianna. So I'm going to throw back out a counter question to counter your answer. Then what's the difference between advanced modeling and BIM modeling then? What do you think?
I guess BIM modeling does add certain constraints to the real world, and then also there's an analysis part of modeling software that isn't in SketchUp or like and stuff.
I think Diana has come very close to the answer. Okay, I've seen some things in the chat as well. Okay, nothing that I can use for this answer though, so I'll continue. Actually, Gianna, you are very hot in terms of close to the answer. That's what I mean, right? In terms of cold being far and hot being close. So, you want to give it a try?
Basic modeling is basic, no information in the model itself. Can't really pull anything from it. It's just massive. While building information modeling really is information embedded in the modeling itself. You can pull information from it.
All right. You have hit the answer right on the head, but Gianna stroke close to the answer. Though I know you were typing something in the chat, but what you said was exactly what you typed. But anyway, this is not a competition who get the answer first. The point is that BIM modeling, the answer is in the I. Information is modeling that has information attached to it. That is just the fundamental difference with the other two. Basic modeling, that's like massing. It's conceptual. And advanced modeling, sky's the limit. It could be a character in a video game, a very complex building. It could be, like those monsters that you see in movies with, CG graphics. Sky's the limit with advanced modeling. So it's what I want to free you guys up from saying now is that, Max is the best program to do no, Max is made for advanced modeling. That's one of its advantages. It can do basic modeling. SketchUp can do a complex model, right? And BIM could do you could probably build a monster in BIM, but I dare would not try to sculpt a monster in BIM, right? In a BIM software, if you get what I'm saying. And what we're going to be, one of the things that we hope to achieve from this exercise is to kind of identify the programs that are built for a particular use and use it to extract only what we need to achieve an objective. So I don't need to know everything that Max can do, but if I need to do something that is advanced modeling, I just need to know enough to just get what I need from it. And that's the mentality that I would want you guys to have when you think about this exercise. It's not about you learning everything in the program. It's just identifying what program is the best one to use to do X, and just being able to know exactly only that thing that I need to know to do X. Right? All right, of course there's Premiere Pro, which is video editing, but we're not going to go into that anyway. But I put that there to represent another type of digital editing that we do on the computer. that is related to digital design. All right. Right. So we discussed most of these and exactly what they do, right? And what we want to do is to learn how to combine them. But before we try to achieve this, I want us to take a look on this workflow here, right? This is a very important workflow because if you master this workflow, there is no kind of visual representation that you cannot achieve, right? So remember we looked on this list here, right? Which is, you know, the first thing that we need to do when we look on our image to mimic is identify the digital media. Say again?
Can you make the screen, the display sharper?
Oh, sharper. Yeah, I can. It's blurry for you.
Yes, sir. And turn down the background.
Oh, I have that going still. Hold on. Oh, there. Forgot about that. Right. Let's see if we can get it sharper by. Oh, there's a cow behind me. Let's see. We're going to make it bigger as well. I have a bit of programs open, so let me try and minimize some of them. Come on. There we go. Let's minimize some of them, and yeah. All right. Let's make that bigger. Is that any better? Let me see. Helps a little?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that looks better.
Yeah. But we're going to be looking at images. So I'm going to prioritize quality over smoothness here. So, all right. Better now?
Much better, sir.
Okay. I think even with this method of sharing that we're using, those who have a faster connection will see clearer than those who don't. But with this method, whether you have a fast or slow connection, it will just slow down the smoothness to give you the sharpest thing. All right, so what we're talking about is digital media functions. There are some base level things that are used to achieve some visual things. And when I say that, I mean, if there is something that has texture or manipulation of images, then the basic function that you will need to achieve it is going to be some kind of raster editing, right? When it has things of a vector nature, you're going to need something that the fundamental aspect of it is vector editing, and that holds true for all the others, right? Whenever there is something related to realism, soft shadows, shadowing, then it has to do with 3D modeling. A good example of that is, you know, you can represent shadows on your elevation by using a 2D program like I don't know, like Photoshop. But you could also generate those shadows from a 3D program as well, right? So what's happening is that you're going to find overlaps in what different programs can do, but there are some programs that are purpose built to do it. Now, in terms of identifying how to represent or to develop a technique, right? the first thing that you need to do is to determine what tools you're going to need. This is not saying that, let me say that. Determine the type of tools you're going to need. So this is not saying that I'm going to need Photoshop or I'm going to need AutoCAD. No, this is you saying I'm going to need a way to edit pixels. I'm going to need a way to edit vectors. I'm going to need a way to edit text. Right? So you're identifying the fundamental media functions. Right? So I could also start to look at some images that we have here. Right? So we can look at that image and then we can immediately, the first thing we need to do is determine what elements we're going to use. Now for maybe I've asked 80%, I know that some persons are going to default to saying, well, we need to use, I'm going to need a way to manipulate pixels, right? But some of us are going to realize that, oh, I need to have something that does 3D. Right? And some of us is even going to say, okay, I need something that edits vector. Some persons might only need one and some persons might need three. But the first thing you want to do when you look at your image to mimic is determine, the type of edits you're going to make. Now notice in the example that I showed you guys, I not only included things that has to do with images. So for example, audio. Remember that we're talking about the broad kind of view, right? So if you're going to remember that things like 3D animation, it has audio that goes with it. Then you might say, oh, I'm going to need a tool to edit audio because I'm going to need background music, right? So the first thing to do is to determine what category of tools you're going to need. And already that eliminates trying to choose by program, because the first thing you do, you don't want to say, oh, I'm going to need to use Photoshop to do this. No, the first thing you determine that I'm going to be dealing with a lot of line work here, or I'm going to be dealing with a lot of pixel work or 3D work. That's the first thing to say. Now the next thing you want to do, and this one is going to be the key one, and we're actually going to do a little activity for those of you that have the images on screen. You're going to determine the features of your images. So this is the one that does not have a rule book. And what I have here some typical features. And when I say typical, these are not the only visual features that exist in the world, but these are some of the typical features. And what I want you guys to do is we're going to use these markers to identify what visual characteristics does the image that we select have. So I'm going to do an example for you first. So for example, let's look at this image. Now this is a very basic plan. I mean, it has some specialness going on for it, but other than that, it's pretty basic, right? And let's see here.
It's 2 p.m.
1 second here. All right. Right. Now, when we look at this plan, let's say that the first thing we want to do is, so we need to identify what category of tools we're going to use, right? So we already rule out things like maybe 3D. Nah, we're not going to need 3D. We're going to need some amount of vector work though, because this has a lot of lines. We're going to need some kind of image editing, right? for a lot of us, the question is going to be, do we need to use any 3D related programs? Now, the next thing that we want to identify now will be now the visual features. And here are some features: hard shadows, soft shadows. Maybe I should put these two beside each other because, you know, they're kind of similar. There we go. I think I have this twice. Right. Texture and texturing. I'm not sure if I should put texturing or texture. Maybe I should put texture. Right. Remember, these are not hard and fast rules, but I just want you to get the idea of what we're going for. And this is more geared towards architecture. 2D furniture, 3D furniture, raster diagramming or vector diagramming. This one is interesting. What do we think is the difference between these two? Like, okay, if I say hard or soft shadows, that's pretty obvious, right? Or if I say 2D furniture or 3D furniture, that's kind of obvious, right? Because, you know, but when we talk about diagramming, what do we think? Give me your point of view for what do you think the word diagramming means before we looked at raster. You know, this word diagramming. Anybody?
I understand it as like a very simplified version. To display some sort of concept or something.
Exactly. And I think a keyword that you used a while ago is simplified. A very simplified version. And are we going to create a simplified, more pixel related diagram or a vector related diagram, right? And you know, these two terms, raster and vector, sometimes the waters can get a little muddled because, I mean, we know that raster has to do with pixels, and we know that vector has to do with line work, but there are different circumstances when an image is more raster oriented compared to more vector oriented, right? We already identified that the word diagramming means that it is simplified version. It's not necessarily detailed or possessing intricate detail. So let's give an example of that. So for example, if I should take this plan here, and I'm going to like just I'm going to pick, okay, let me put it beside this one here. All right, and don't worry, Beresford, I'm not going to replace the image that you selected here, but let's see if I can. Let me look at some others first. Let me look on some others first to see what's the best example that I can give out here. Okay, maybe that one. So if we look at these two plans, right, and I'm going to kind of zoom in on them, which would we say is more vector oriented and which one is more raster oriented?
The one on the left is more vector oriented.
The one on the left is more?
Vector.
Okay, cool. The one on the left is more vector. That was from Picard. Anybody else?
I would say the one.
Yeah, Muna said the one on the left is more vector.
I would say the one on the right actually is more vector because of the shadows.
The one on the right?
So the one on the right is more vector. The one on the left is more raster because of the shadows.
The shadows, yeah.
All right.
Well, that's true, but I'm
You-
seeing the pixels on the one on the right. So
But the one on the
that
right
that
is
could
more
just be the
pixelated.
compression of the video.
Right.
Well, yeah, but
Wonder-
you see, this is the point of view now, right? Yes, both of them, might be made up of pixels, but I'm really talking about the makeup of the image, in terms of when you look at an image and you're trying to determine, what are the features that make up this image, right? We're not talking about the what is represented or the technology that is used to display the image. Obviously, if we're looking at a PDF drawing or something, we can say, oh well, that's made from vector lines, but we're not necessarily talking about that. We're talking about the makeup. Are we using more?
Oh, say for the makeup, then the one on the left more rust with.
More raster?
Normally try and scale. So if I scale and see that it starts looking pixelated, because like the one on the right now, it looks more pixelated than the one on the left.
But we're not watching that. It's not about that. We're talking of the makeup. Think about the molecules that make something up, right? Not what it is now, not how it's displayed now. Whether one is we're talking about if you were or in the creation of this thing. It's kind of like you look on well, for those of you that maybe play video games and you're fighting a boss, and most of you, what does kind of get like you're playing those like a RPG where it's elemental and you have fire magic and water magic, and you're fighting a boss and you can kind of tell that, oh well, this boss is made up of fire. He may not be a big fireball, but you just get those hints that, no, I think he's made up of fire, so I'm going to use water to fight him. Or you can look at a car, and based on how the car is curvy or whether or not it is straight, you can kind of tell whether it is made up of more contemporary or traditional, So as designers, we can look at something and kind of tell the makeup of something from visually analyzing pieces of it. So that's kind of what I mean in terms of the makeup of the image. Right? So when you look at the image on the left, most of you realize that, it's some of you mentioned things about soft shadows. Yes, that's a good indicator, but what do you think really sells? What is the key thing that would convince you that the image on the left is more made up of more raster-like features compared to the image on the right?
How clean it is?
Okay, I like that one, how clean it is. And then there was another one, another suggestion. What was it?
Straight line, sir.
What you said about lines?
More straight line, as in more boxy.
Okay, cool. So those are two good answers, right? I'm still kind of waiting for
the color added to the fixtures.
First. I think Alia was first.
Yes, sir. I was saying that compared to the colors added to the fixtures, you can view the one on the left split up. You can kind of create a sense of definition on each one.
Okay. All right. And what was the other one?
The one on the left look more realistic.
Look overlays, as in
realistic. All right.
Sir,
So
I think.
Huh?
Sorry. I'm thinking the one on the right is more vector based because of like all of the furniture and stuff are just line work and fill, and including the shadows there just fill. There's no gradients, and also the plants. Just how they kind of look like very simple fill geometries that you can do in like Illustrator or something.
All right, yes. That is also very true, and I think that one is is, you know, all of those answers that you gave are all correct, right? But the thing that kind of give you a sense of whether a drawing is more raster oriented or vector is, like in this case, the furniture. I mean, the furniture is one of them. The soft shadows, some of you mentioned soft shadows that you're seeing here, right? So the reason why that question becomes important is because when an image is more raster oriented, the kind of tools that you want to gravitate to more are going to be more towards the image editing side of things versus the line work editing side of things. Because both of them have line work, you know. Both of them have line work. And remember, if you think about how software works, for those of you who that use Photoshop and Illustrator, you can use Illustrator to do Photoshop stuff, kind of, you know, you can use Photoshop to do Illustrator stuff. So it's not like you can't use one to do the other. So this is why it's important that if something is more oriented towards raster, then it would make sense to lean more to the Photoshop side of things and then try and fill in with the raster tools. But then this is where some of us run into problem, because if we look at an image and if we look at the image on the right and we say, okay, we know that it is more vector oriented because, you know, the furniture looks more clean line, everything is kind of boxy, they look more simplified geometry, but yet we say, you know what, we're still going to use Photoshop. I mean, it's not as if Photoshop couldn't give you those representations, but you would have gotten more mileage. Your workflow would be less, what's the word now? Would be more easy. There's a higher possibility that you would have a better workflow if you went more the vector side of things and then fill in with the raster, right? And this don't only exist between vector and raster, it also exists between 2D and 3D. So let me ask you that question now. I mean, let's go to the next question, right? And don't worry, Beresford, I'm going to remove that plan from your section, all right? There is one here, right? So there is 3D or 2D. I mean, especially for floor plans, this question is going to be important as well. So let me go back down here. Let me use this example here. So when you look at a plan like this that we're seeing here, we might say, okay, let me start with the obvious one first. When you look at a plan like this and we say, okay, what do we think is the makeup of the furniture in this plan? Is it more 2D or is it more 3D? Right? This one is super simple, right? So it's obviously a giveaway that is more 2D. As a matter of fact, for those of us that are die-hard, I think vector or, you know, CAD people, we might say, hey, I know that block. I know this symbol for bed. It comes from whatever program. So it's obviously 2D. You could use 3D to get this same work, but you know, why would you put yourself through that, right? Because obviously if I wanted to use this technique, I know that these furniture is coming from more of a 2D makeup. So then the tools that you would use now would be more closer to two-dimensional, you know, and vector. So like you would be looking more at using more Illustrator-like programs or AutoCAD-like programs, you know, maybe Vectorworks or Revit are programs that give you 2D representation. You would depend more on the 2D representation side of things. But when we look at this now, we say, oh, okay. This one is a little bit more gray, right? What do you guys think? Would you go for more 3D representations here, or is it really 2D with depth? Maybe this question should be thrown out to Beresford because this is really his plan.
Oh yes, I was
What would be your objective?
It looks more like 2D, but just adding depth to it.
But adding depth?
Yeah, it was some of them. Well,
All
I'm
right,
looking.
Cool. That's also true. Anybody else? Let me throw that question out.
Is there something other than depth?
No. So, for example, would you be looking to use more 2D furniture with depth or 3D furniture?
Depends on the program.
That's a good point. So, this is where we come to workflow now. When you look at this, remember, this first one was very easy to know. You already know that all I want is some blocks, some simple stuff. So, I'm going to be drawing for tools that are more on the drafting side of things, all right? More AutoCAD and that kind of stuff. These now, that is here. We could say that, okay, we need furniture with depth. So maybe we need to find like top views of beds. You follow me? For those of us who are more savvy with 3D, they would say, well, let me get a bed in top view and render it. And then save it as a, as an image and put it in my floor plan. All right. So we're going back to this technique thing now. So this is simply identifying some features of what the Mimic have. Let's look at, for example, okay, so it is more vector work. Is it more sketchy lines or clean lines? I think I had one called clean line. I think it was supposed to be this. Sketchy line work or clean line work. Right? Because a lot of us chose images that kind of have a sketchy line work. The key thing here is that the word line work kind of leads us down this path of using more vector oriented tools, right? So if we're looking at a plan, okay, let me give you a good example here. What about this section here? Wait, first let me remove this plan from where there's what is. And coming back to you, Ashley, right? This work that you have selected here, I'm gonna grab your own. Let us throw it out here. I'm going to grab, let's see if I can find, let me find one that is. Okay, here we go. Yeah, maybe this one. So if we look at these two sections, right? You can clearly see that one of them has more line work oriented. It is going more in the vector direction. And once something is going in the vector direction, you want to be moving more away from Photoshop and more towards vector tools, Illustrator, AutoCAD, and those kind of tools. Now, the interesting thing with this one here is that, yes, we're moving towards more raster oriented tools, right? We have a little bit of texture that maybe the texture is caused by the resolution of the image, maybe, or maybe is a part of the effect. But also, right away, both of these are 3D, but this has soft shadows, right? It has shadows. A, B, what type of shadows? Soft shadows. So let's go back up to our list up here, right? It has soft shadows. Now, when you end up having a bunch of these together, like let's say you have an image that is soft shadow, texture, raster. Let's put that there for now. Where is 2D or 3D? I'm going to say I'm going to call this 2D features. So it's a little bit more broad, and I'm going to call this 3D because it doesn't have to be furniture. All right. So remember, this is like my whiteboard. So I will just go in and change stuff on the fly because that's the whole purpose of this board, right? So, oops, 3D features. So when you start to group all of these together, it's like automatically you're kind of building up. You already know some tools that you're going to use, right? So for example, when something has soft shadows, it is more realistic. So already you're not going to use necessarily like a SketchUp, because SketchUp can't give you photorealistic shadows, right? And soft shadowing, I could kind of put photorealistic shadow, but I don't want to put photorealistic shadow. I rather just use, I want to keep it very high level and simple. Soft shadows are closer to making something look real. Even if you look on this sticky note that's here, and Mirrorboard has this soft shadow happening there, it has a more real effect to it. But the truth is that there are limited amount of programs that can give you soft shadow. You can always create your own soft shadow. For those of you who like to use your paintbrush in Photoshop and you like to create your own shadows, it's not like there's nothing wrong with doing that. But there might be those of you that might say, oh, this section has soft shadow, so I know that it's going to go into a program that needs to be rendered. Because the process of rendering can calculate soft shadows for me, right? So we haven't, just by the nature of what makes up an image, we can automatically start to go in a certain direction of what type of programs we're going to use and rule out programs that we are not going to use. So soft shadows, we know that SketchUp not going to give us that. This image has a lot of texture. Boy, that means it's going to involve some amount of raster editing in Photoshop-like program. It features 3D because you can have things that have soft shadow and it's 2D. Or you can have things that have soft shadow and it's 3D. So just the combination of these things already will make you choose between, should I be going towards Lumion or should I be going towards Photoshop only and no 3D, right? And then we have raster diagramming. Raster diagramming would be like, let's say that you're going to find a picture of a bed and cut it out. You're going to cut out a part of an image and use that to form a piece of what you're doing. That is raster related stuff because you're editing images. The flip side of that is that, am I going to be editing line work and thickness of lines and trimming lines and all that things, right? So the combination of these things will help you. So what I'm trying to get at here is that if I was to determine the features, I'm going to cut these. of this 3D section, then I would be putting things like soft shadows, texture, 3D. It features, 3D. And Rasta, yes, maybe. I mean, I can see some people here. Maybe they are cutouts, or maybe they are objects in 3D. You see, so maybe not. Maybe everything that I need here is just a feature of 3D, and then those are the features of this one here. But then I look on this now and I say, okay, let me break this down. What are the things that we're going to be looking for here? And right away, okay, let me just bring these closer. Let me bring them closer to the sticky notes where we can see them, right? So I'm going to be using things like there are 2D features, there are no shadows, right? It has clean line work. Did it have clean or sketchy? Let's take a look at it. Yeah, it has clean line work. It has 2D related features. It has more vector diagramming. Definitely not raster. It would be more vector related diagramming. Now, are you guys following me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
So are you
sir.
guys understanding the kind of concept I mean, we haven't selected what program to use yet. We're just kind of orienting ourselves by looking at the image and determining what are the major features of this image, right? And it's kind of like taking things in stages, right? Like you don't want to like overwhelm yourself with you don't want to start at the end. You start at the beginning and work your way up, right? So even if we say that, okay, because this use soft shadows, I'm going to have to use a program that can get me soft shadows. Now, I could try and represent this in 2D and try and use Photoshop and paint every soft shadow here, right? But that wouldn't be wise. It would be better for me to use a 3D program and then generate my soft shadows from that program. So at this point, maybe you're saying, yeah, but I don't know how to use like Lumion or Twinmotion or whatever. But we don't really reach that bridge to cross it yet. The fact is that we identify that we're going to need some sort of soft shadow, and it will have to come from somewhere, and it needs to come from a program that can give me soft shadows just like that, preferably. All right. Right. So this is basically the second step in what we need to do, and we're actually going to do that today. I'm going to call this 2D related features, and I'm going to call this 3D related features. Right. I think that's a more better term. Can I rename these categories? I think these are tags. So yeah, I'm going to rename it. I'm going to say 3D related features. I'm going to call this 2D related features. So these are tags that are in Miraboard, and what it can do, it can help us to identify features, sketchy line work, clean line work. So I'm going to rename this one to I'm going to call it clean line work. Now here's the thing. these features that I'm showing you here, these are not the only features that exist in the world of visualizing, right? So your drawing might, okay, like glowing. I mean, there are some standout features, and this is the thing, you guys need to identify what those standout features are, and you would put it there so that you can know that you need to identify these standout features. So let's do some examples, right? So I'm gonna pick some by random. Anybody want me to volunteer their selection first? I can't do all of them, so is there anybody that has a serious doubt as in what are the standard features, what are the standout features that I would need to identify? All right, okay. Lorenzo.
There
I
are
use white still.
both, but it would be good to look at mine. Kimoy Simpson.
All right, Simpson. I think Lorenzo beat you by a couple seconds, so
I can go after
Let's-
Lorenzo, no problem.
okay. Oh, Lorenzo. Oh, I love this technique. I actually did a mimic. I actually built a standard for this technique in the past, which is pretty cool, right? So, but you're going to create your own. All right, Lorenzo, what for the plan or the section?
Plan, sir. The plan, sir. The plan.
Plan, okay, plan here. All right, so let me grab this. I'm gonna put it up here because it's closer to my sticky notes. I don't have to go like all the way down the bottom. Oops. I thought I copied it. Where is it? Here. There we go. All right, there we go. So we want to identify some of the standout features in this, right? So right away, we know that it has 2D features and it has soft shadows. All right, so I'm going to grab these. Remember, you don't always have to use the standout features that I give, but I mean, the ones I give are the very popular amongst architecture. All right. I wouldn't necessarily call this, it does feature a bit of clean line work, but it's not a line work oriented diagram, like, and chances are most of you, well, 99% of you guys here, well, 90, I would say, would have line work that, that some form of line work you're dealing with a plan, right? I'm going to say features, I would say texture, definitely. That is a feature that we have here. There's a lot of texture in here. The ground has texture, you have tiles, you have rugs, even the furniture themselves have texture, so there's a lot of texture in there. And like 3D related features, let's put an S there. Not so much. As a matter of fact, maybe I would just make up a new one now and I would call it 2.5D related features. Right? What do you guys think of that? 2.5D? What do I mean by that?
Like it's floating in between both, sir, because it looks 3D-ish. And it's
not quite
as a 2D, so
right, exactly. So it's not quite 3D. Let's find a color for this. Let's give it gray or something, right? And then I'm going to remove delete tag. Do I need to delete? Yeah. No. Just uncheck it. Okay, good. Right. It's a 2.5D. So I'm gonna put this here. Now you realize how I just kind of made that up? I mean, there are some of you that will have some images that maybe my descriptions don't quite, describe. But we can clearly see that we have soft shadows here. We have 2D related features because we have like line work and stuff. We have a lot of texturing, and we have like 2.5D related features because we have these furniture here that looks 3D. Right. So when I have identified these things, my next step is that I'm going to create an estimated workflow, right? And all this estimated workflow is trying to determine where was I was here. It's trying to determine, okay, how am I going to build the things that gives me these features, right? So I might say, and you can simply just do what I do. We can just keep it simple and use some. My recommendation is Miraboard, definitely, because it's very easy to just draw some things here and put some text in there. So I might say that, okay, for my 2D related features, like I'm going to need to have a plan somewhere. And this is where now you have choices, because if you are great with AutoCAD more than Revit, then you would say, well, I'm going to get my 2D related features from AutoCAD. But for those of you who are good with Revit, you're going to say, well, I'm going to get my 2D related features from Revit. The key thing is that you don't say like, well, I'm going to get my soft shadows from Revit. You know what I mean? Because you already would have encountered that Revit doesn't give me soft shadows. Remember we relate soft shadows to photorealism, things that are close to real. So when you say soft shadows, you're either talking more that's something more close to raster or rendering, not something that is close to 2D and drafting. So I might say that, okay, I'm going to use AutoCAD. I'm going to use AutoCAD. What am I going to use AutoCAD to do? Well, I'm going to use that to create this plan, right? So, okay, fine. That's what I'll do. And then this is your estimated workflow, by the way, all right? And then you might say, I'm going to use, I have some furniture here. All right, I'm going to maybe place, plan. I'm going to, this depends on how detailed you want to make it. So I'm going to export PDF, maybe, and then I'm going to, let's pull that out again. Place plan in Photoshop. And maybe I don't even have to write that out. I can just say Photoshop. And what am I going to use Photoshop to do? I'm going to add floor texture. Maybe, and wall shadows, maybe. Right. And then you can think within yourself that, like, I don't really know how to use Photoshop, but I know Photoshop is great with raster editing, and things like texturing and shadows are stuff that raster editing programs can do, right? So in a way, you're kind of telling yourself that I know that this program can do this, so that's why I'm going to use this program, even though I'm not a Photoshop expert, right? And this is what you guys should find is happening to you. You're going to be choosing a software because you know of what the software can do, and less about whether you can use it or not. And I'm coming to the next step to tell you, why you would choose to do that. It might sound counterproductive, but I'll show you why. So my plan is to use Photoshop to add the floor texture and wall shadows, right? And then you might say, okay, but I'm going to download, I don't know, PNG furniture from the web. Right, from the web. I'm going to insert that into Photoshop. Right? So, okay, that's my plan so far. What do you guys think? Does this sound like a good plan to create this thing? Right?
Yes, sir.
Or maybe I shouldn't do this one because I'm kind of giving it away for but anyway, all right. But let's continue. So that's our plan to get the furniture. Whether or not it will work, we don't know. We'll kind of figure that out as we go along. Okay, so next, I look at some of these things and I say, okay, the furniture can give me the soft shadows as well and all of that. And that might be it for your workflow. Oh yeah, you have some text here. So maybe you say you will just add your text in Photoshop as well. It's up to you. But basically any kind of major step, you should be covering everything that you have selected here as your major feature. Right? You can get the soft shadows for all the 2D related features. I'm going to use AutoCAD to do that. How are you going to get the texture in? Well, maybe you can download some textures from the internet, so things like floor textures and stuff like that. And maybe I will put that here, or maybe I don't have to put it yet. The key thing is that this is an estimate, and this is like you kind of mapping out what you believe should work for you to be able to produce this this image that is here. There is a little feature here, like there is a line work. If you notice, if you look closely on the wall lines, it has a kind of outer line here, and then it has this inner black line here. So I don't know, that seems a little like, all of this is like vector related editing that I have to be doing to get this thing here. Maybe I could do it in Photoshop, but then once you have to manipulate line work a lot, you don't want to be struggling in a program that's not really meant to do line work. So as it turns out, there is a little bit of, I would say, a little bit of vector related editing that is in here. So I'm going to add this here. And then what I'm going to do is that I might then, instead of going from AutoCAD into Photoshop, because when I go into Photoshop, I'm not sure about getting this feature here that has this white outline. Maybe I could get it, but in some cases it might be a little tricky. Like, I think, in my opinion, I think I would be working too hard to get this in Photoshop, when I can just go in Illustrator, that is a vector working expert.
Create outline.
Say again?
Select pixel and create outline. I mean, that's it.
True. Okay, so guess what? To generate outline. Now, this is a guess. Like, I could go the route of just
because Illustrator would have something like it had more in Illustrator than Photoshop.
so I'm going to write down what you said. I could use Photoshop to generate wall outline. Or I could use Illustrator to generate wall outline. Oops. Like literally these two paths could be one that you choose. Anyway, whichever one you use, you would definitely be using Photoshop to add texture and wall shadows and those things. Right? And I would definitely be downloading PNG images and putting it into Photoshop. Now, what you have here is your estimated workflow, right? And this is something important to have. I'm going to just put this on a sheet. Oh, that's a big sheet. There. What I have created there is my workflow. Now I go to the next step. So create an estimated workflow process diagram. So that's what I just did. This is, remember at this stage that you are in fourth year, you have used Photoshop already. You have used most of these programs already. So you would have had an idea if you could maybe use this program to do something. And in your mind, you might say, well, maybe it can, maybe it can't. So you put the options there. The next step now is that, and this is the key thing now, you are going to find a specific, the keyword is specific tutorial to do a step that you don't know how to do. Right? Now, I know most of us probably, we dig through the internet and find a bunch of tutorials. The difference with this is that you're going to be a little bit more targeted, right? You wouldn't be necessarily looking for a tutorial that says create floor plan in Photoshop. No. You would be looking for something that more says generate wall outline with Photoshop, or something that says add wall shadow using Photoshop, or something that says generate outline in Illustrator. You would be looking for a specific tutorial that fills in the blank of your workflow. Because the truth of the matter is, in most cases, you're not necessarily going to find resources. And when I say tutorial, it doesn't mean it has to be a video, guys. Remember that you have written tutorials as well, right? So you're not necessarily going to find a tutorial that gives you this exact output. If you type into Google floor plan in Photoshop tutorial, you're going to get 1 million hits. So this process of doing this narrows you down to only what you believe you need to achieve the end result. I mean, all you really need is to generate a wall outline, because I don't know how to do that. Or all you really need is to, I could break this down a little bit further, and that's what I encourage. So for example, I would say use Photoshop to add floor texture, right? So that is what I would do. Then I could say use Photoshop to add wall shadows. Right. Let's remove that there. No, that could be my next step that I do there. And what happens is that when you break this down, it makes it easier to find the things that you need, right? So, and maybe your next step is to add, download furniture from the web. So it's like anything in this list that you have that you don't know how to do, you research and find it, right? Rather than trying to find the whole thing, and then there are going to be like experiments along the way. Now, when you find a tutorial, so for example, you might find a tutorial, and there are some cool ones that's here. That's maybe there is only one part in the tutorial. Oops. That tells you to do a specific thing, like how did this person take a texture from here or what website did this person go to find this texture? That's right here. And then from doing that now, oh yeah man, all right. And then from doing that now, you're going to create your final artwork. Now, when you create your final work, you might find that you're going to deviate. So, for example, this, you might deviate from where this was. All I'm asking you to do is to show us the final version of what you did to achieve the image. All right, so do you guys understand this discussion that we're having here? You understand this process?
Yes, sir. I understand.
Right.
So we do that whiteboard thing.
Right, so this, what you're going to do is you're going to use your own whiteboard to document this thing. What I want you to do on this whiteboard though is I want you to identify what are the major features, just as what I did with these two images here, to identify some of the features that these images will use. And we're going to try to get through as most of them that we can. But you guys are going to identify the features. And if there's not a feature that describes a major thing in your image, then just make it up. So I'm going to open the access to the mirror board so that you guys are able to do that. And what time is it now? It is now minutes to 3. All right, so we might go overboard a little bit. I mean, we're already overboard. Come to think of it, I don't think we'll have enough time to do all of this, because there is even more things that I want to tell you guys as well. But in the meantime, I want you guys to start to do this. One second there.
If I'm not in studio this semester, but I'm working on a project, can I use the project?
You mean as your mimic image? Remember that the image that you're mimicking has to be selected from
I didn't remember that we would have done that on our studio project.
Right. For the assessment that you have to use the technique in your studio project.
Yeah, but I'm not doing studio. What I'm doing.
Yeah, that's no problem. Yeah, man. You can use another studio. Any studio will do. I mean, the idea is that those of you who are doing design studio, what you're doing for me in computing is something that you would use for your studio project anyway. So, you would want to do a section using one of these techniques, or you would want to do one of these things in your design studio anyway. You would have a technique with your floor plan anyway, but you just need to pick one. You don't need to do all three. You just need to pick one. And the details of that handout will come out later in the semester, but for now, just have in your head that you're going to be using one of this technique that you develop for yourself in your studio project. Maybe you would use the most successful one. That would make sense, right? All right, so you guys should have full access to the board now. I see a few people on. So what I want you guys to do is you're going to identify some of the main features in the images that you have select. And as a matter of fact, while you guys are there, for those of you who have missing images, please just drop them in now and let me approve them so that you're good to go.
Sir, so
Oh, sir.
can I select which one
Yeah.
I want to?
For my own, with the X-ray one, I was gonna tell you which one to remove.
All right. Right. So let's go. I mean, both of them were okay. So let's delete the one you're not going to use.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. You have access to the board, so you can do it.
Regarding the perspective that I'm gonna change now, I sent it in already, but like, should I have to wait?
Yeah,
until
just
you
paste
see
it here.
Right. Oh,
No,
okay.
just paste it here. Just paste it here. Because everybody, I mean, we're already kind of flapping on one wing because we're doing everything in the lecture session until the new lecture comes on. So I want us to, after today, everybody should have their images selected, right? Okay, I will. I mean, I guess Alden, your complex context is these vehicles, right?
Yes, sir.
No problem. There was another question. Who had it?
So I was asking you, can you copy and paste the image inside of it? I mean, you just copy and drag it.
Yeah, man, just drag it. Yeah, just drag it, copy and paste it. If you're on a cell phone and you're unable to do it, just send me the link and I will sort it out.
Sir, not getting the option to delete one, you know.
To delete one? What do you mean? To delete, oh, when you try and delete it, it doesn't delete? You should get it.
No, it doesn't.
Hold on, where are you? You have your name?
Lorenzo, sir.
All right, I see it now. It might be a refreshing. Is it that you want to delete that one you have highlighted?
Yes, sir.
Or just move it off the board. It's fine. Let's move it off the board.
Sir, my name is not on the list of
Right.
students here.
If your name is not on the list,
Sir, not moving behind us, sir.
yeah, it might be something to do with your internet connection. Mirrorboard kind of does that sometimes. It just. Is there anybody getting a similar thing? They're trying to.
Sir, I'm not seeing my name either, sir. Alex Ward.
That's no problem. Those of you who are not seeing your name, I'm going to just put a section down here. I will arrange it in alphabetical order at another time. Right, there we go. Come on. So right now on the bottom.
Problem solved, sir.
Okay.
Oh.
So let's look down the bottom. I'll create a few templates. Just oh guys, don't forget your picture because I recognize you based on your picture and we're not using video, so I want you guys to place your picture there. I know that you probably placed a picture from last semester, but you know, you might have an updated picture you want to use. That's fine. Duplicate. There we go. All right, this is only for those who don't see the name up top. And then what I will do, I will duplicate it. I will arrange it in alphabetical order later. Oh, those are you who see your name, their sheet in blue. That means I didn't see your name in the class registration list. So please remember to register for your class from on the website. Right? Give me a name and contact information. I know you did it last year, but we are still doing it this year.
Sir, if I can, but you can zoom in on that sheet. The first blue one.
Campbell, yeah.
Yes, sir. If I'm the question mark, scroll down.
All right.
3D.
Yeah.
Yeah, X-ray. I wanted to say that the communication one was to show the structure in red.
Oh, so you want to do it? I mean, if you want, so meaning that you want to you want your technique to look like this, but you want to show the structure in red. All right, cool. Yeah, no problem.
All right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. So what you should be doing here, I'm going to carry these closer so you can get to them. These descriptions closer. And remember, if you don't find something that describe your thing, so they are a bit closer now. Let me make it big so you don't miss it. Right. There we go. So you guys are going to label your mimic with the visual features that you think your mimic represents.
Sir,
Yeah.
Ashley, for my exploded, I changed the photo. When you finish, could you take a look at it for me, please?
All right, no problem. Graham, right? G. Okay, here we go. Yeah. Right. So that's the one you want to do. So this is everything. This is your technique and communication. Remember, the objective is to show the interior and internal space. Is to highlight an internal space, and it's done in this image. So you won't be using this blue one.
Well, I can
I thought you were hearing me. Yes, sir. I'll just delete the blue
Okay.
one.
All right, cool. Good to go. Yeah, who else was there?
Andre, Ajar.
Last name is Ajar? No?
Ajar, yes, sir.
Ajar, okay. All right, yeah. Found you. What about it? Oh, so right. So this perspective now. Remember the objective of the perspective?
Oh, I thought that like the flowers and stuff around the density. Okay, I'll change it.
Right. Look at some other examples of what you're seeing there. I mean, this what you have here don't really qualify in that category. Right.
There's another image that I had though. I don't know. I'll upload it so you can see.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna pick out some.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Okay, yeah.
What about the section?
Oh, okay. The section. I'll come into you a second. Yeah, the section is fine, but you need their communication objective now. Like, you need to meet one of the objectives. What technique are you going to use to meet that objective? Like, show me an example of a successful one you're going to mimic. And same thing for your floor plan. Yeah, who was it that had the question?
Jessica. I just
Yeah,
Gemma.
Jessica.
Yeah, so I just dropped my images in. Could you double check them for me, please?
All right, cool. Yeah, your technique is good to go. Communication objective is good to go. I mean, it's yeah. Section is bordering a bit on too simple. Yeah. Yeah. We'll come again with that technique for your section. For your perspective, yep, that's good to go. That's actually looking very nice. I hope your design studio work will have this effect.
Sir, I'm finished with studio.
All right. Oh man. And then for your X-ray exploded, you need. I mean, is it that? I mean, the left image would suffice for both, but is it that you want to like highlight how the stairs connects between each levels? You want to integrate that in your image?
But I can do that. The reason I had two different images because I thought we had to submit two different images.
No,
for the different
that
styles.
don't. You're no. As long as the
I can
image,
merge them though.
it's up to you. As long as the image. Yeah, there is thunder here. Are you getting that through the speaker? The thunder?
Yeah, it sounds nice.
Loud and clear.
Yeah. So yeah. So
Yes, I use
just-
the first one. I use the first
All right,
one.
cool, no problem. So I'll delete that. So that first one ticks both boxes.
I'll do the section.
So I can check my 3D cursor.
All right, before I go through and check,
Sir, when
because
you
what-
have time, check Townsend plan here, sir.
say again?
For Townsend, when you have the time, check back on the plan.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to, let me see. Let me ask you guys a question. Do you guys have time on in the afternoon session, your practical session? Is it possible that both groups can come at that time?
What time is that, sir?
That is at 2 to, I mean, the timetable has it from 2 to like, what, 6? But
That's one of my times.
Yes, sir.
Right.
On a Monday.
So does the second group, do you have a clash? That should be the question I ask. Let me pull it up here so you guys
No,
can.
sir. At least I don't.
The reason I'm asking is I want to try and, I mean, there's only one of me currently, but I want to try and let us keep our schedule. So on Monday, you would have had advanced computing one, at least one set of you from 2 to 6. What I would ask is if, could everybody come like maybe for an hour and 2 or 2 to that class? Because remember that on Wednesday of next week would have been your presentation. This is where you guys would show me the mimic and show me you show me an image of your mimic and the image of your workflow, like what I just did, for only the floor plan and section. Let me repeat, you don't have to do all 4, right? Because I remember one time somebody stressed out themselves and did all 4, and I'm like, no, you don't have to do all 4, right? You're only doing the first 2, right? So I would want us to meet again on Monday to, like, I want to share an experience with how to break down a section that I did. And I don't think it will fit in today's class. So I would do that on Monday in your time slot there. All right. In the meantime, I want to talk a little bit on some that I see here. I see some that I am confident that you guys can do. I'm going to just choose some of you at random. So, Campbell, I just spoke to you a while ago. Like, how you feeling about your floor plan? What are some of the visual features that you think your floor plan has?
So, can see some clean line work.
All right, cool. You see some clean line work. What else?
Yeah, texture.
All right, there is some texture.
And you also have some, let me see, some vector.
All right, you have some vector diagramming.
Yeah.
You also have a lot of 2D related features.
Yeah, and furniture.
And I think you have some, yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
And I really see, a tiny bit of soft shadowing for the furniture.
Yeah, but I don't see it a whole lot. So
Okay.
I'm going to say, vector, texture, 2D, clean line work. Yeah. So what I would do is put these beside yours like that. That's all we're trying to get through today.
All right, yeah.
And then, you can look, I'm pretty confident you can do this. It has some shadow, but I wouldn't call it soft shadow. Yeah, it would be more of a hard shadow. Yeah, it would be more of a hard shadow. And I want you to just like use simple, preferably use Mirrorboard and just kind of document like, okay, I would get the plan in Revit. Then, would I go into Illustrator, or some persons just comes straight out of Revit. There are some people who try to do the texturing in Revit. I wouldn't recommend it, but there are some persons who want to get the shadows in Revit, but then I think Revit shadows are going to be hard. Right?
Yeah.
But I want to point out, I want to give you guys some tips, right?
Sir.
Let me show.
From my 3D perspective, I wanted to make that as okay. That's why
you wanted to what?
I wanted to know if my 3D perspective was okay.
Oh, 3D perspective? Nope. Still not okay. Still not. Remember the objective. That's not enough to be a dense. Okay. No, but what is the thing that you're highlighting?
I like foliage, and then I want to learn how to utilize the foliage to then highlight it.
But think about needle in the haystack. Needle in the haystack. Keep that in mind. Right? So you imagine you're trying to find something amongst something else. That is what you need to represent. Right. All right. What I want to do.
Sir, quick question now.
Yeah. Let me take one more question.
But the most important thing you haven't given to us yet, sir. You haven't given us the models.
Oh, I'm so happy that you've brought that up. Saving the best news for last, right? I want to show you guys some features though, some tips and tricks. I don't think I can get through all of it today, which is why I wanted to for you guys to come on Monday, because as a matter, I'm looking at the schedule now. You guys have studio on a Tuesday. Let me look at your timeline. I'm really trying desperately. I don't want to push this timeline back anymore. So while you guys analyze your images, I'm also analyzing our timeline that we have for this exercise here. Where did I place it? Geez, where did I place the timeline? Okay, there, right. All right, I want to do the tips, some tips now. Remember, I'm not teaching you guys to use software. I'm going to be showing some things that apply to just taking just certain elements from software so that you can meet an objective. I want to show you this. Bring up something. SketchUp. And in order for me to do that, I must unveil the model. Okay, can I get a drum roll? Our model for this exercise is going to be ta-da-da-da-da-da. Are you guys seeing it?
Yes, sir. Seeing it.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, this model that you see here, we have in every flavor imaginable, right? We have it in 3D Max, SketchUp, FBX, we have a Revit file, we even have an ArchiCAD file. The floor plan, we have that as a 2D DWG. I didn't put an Illustrator file there, but you know, Illustrator can open DWG, so you guys should be fine. In order to access the model, you're going to click this download link here, and the link should be there and active. And that link will have all the different versions of the model. All right. Now, what I want to use my time to do here, I want to give you a tour of some of the versions of the model, and also to show you some features that you guys should be aware of when you're trying to achieve your mimic. Okay, has everybody seen the model?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right, we have absorbed it. For some of you, you might want to download it and open it. I will be opening it, a copy of the model here. Just give me a second so my programs can load. I'm going to open the SketchUp version as well. And let's open one more version. I'm going to open a Revit version. I think I have it in Revit 2020. I think I tried to put it in the lowest one possible. All right. I'm getting some beautiful rain, which is good, so it can cool down the place. Anybody else in my group is getting rain where they are? Or is it just
thunder?
Oh, okay. All right, I'm going to switch this thing over to smooth because I'm going to need smooth in order to show you some of these things. All right. All right, let's hope that my computer hangs in there because I've opened the model in all of these programs all at once. Come on. It's taking a little while.
Is it acceptable now?
Okay, I'm gonna check it back in a little bit. Before I do that, we're gonna go through some tips and tricks. So I want you guys to just, whenever you can, just, if you find something that you realize will apply to your mimic, I want you to jot it down so that you remember it, so you can work on it over. You'll have something to work on over the weekend, or I don't want you to leave it like the day before. All right. All right. I also want to open Illustrator. Oh my goodness, I have so many programs open. I'm not going to open ArchiCAD, and I'm no ArchiCAD expert. Are there any ArchiCAD persons in the house? Any ArchiCAD fans?
I use ArchiCAD, sir.
Okay, cool. Remember, you are free to use any software you want. Oh my goodness, finally. Okay, here we go. This is the Revit version. All right, now first thing to note, this model is natively from 3D Max. All right, so what do I mean by that? You're not going to get wall tool, window tool for this model, even though there's a version for Revit, and the same goes for ArchiCAD as well. All right, so that is an important point to know. Now, remember where we were talking about the right programs to use. For those of you that are doing section, right, I want you to keep in mind that Revit can do a section. Revit does have a section tool, and it should work in this. If you go to the level 1 here, I hope I didn't bite off more than I can chew. There we go. Right, if we go to the model here, and I'm just going to cut a quick section here. Come on. As a matter of fact, I'm not going to cut the section this way. Come on. Okay, right. I'm going to go to my 3D view. I'm going to use a section box. Most of you know about section box. Yes?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. There we go. All right, while that works out itself, let's go into SketchUp. And oh, this SketchUp is looking so empty. Let me turn on my tools. Oh boy. There we go. Right. Okay, let's see if Revit. Okay, there we go. So as you can see, Revit can give us a section. Now, most of us who are Revit fans here might also know about your visibility graphics. So for example, when areas are cut through, what should they look like? Right? You guys know visibility graphics?
Yes, sir.
Right. Or you can use your your overrides to do it as well. Come on, where are you? There you are. Now, you can change your view to perspective and get a section then and there. But right away, let me kind of angle this down a little bit. All right, and come on. Okay. All right, while Revit works out itself, let's go back into SketchUp. Let's use the section tool here. Okay. Come on. There we go. All right. So most of us know that SketchUp can also cut a section, right? And you know, depending on the technique that you guys want to use, you might these two programs, you might use them to get two different outputs. So for example, if you had a section where you need to be manipulating, like for example, the line work that you're getting from the section here, and you want to like custom manipulate the line work, you could export a 2D graphic. There we go. And we could export that 2D graphic as a, let's try PDF. I'm going to export it to my desktop. All right. Let's go back over to Revit. All right. So this is my Revit view here. And how would you get graphics out of Revit? well, you would have to use you'd have to print this view that's right here, right? Now, Revit right out of the box can automatically give you these views already. It can automatically give you the filled walls by using the visibility graphics right off the bat. But you have to remember that you have to get whatever you do in Revit, you have to get it out of that program in order to be able to manipulate it in the next program, right? And how it comes out of one program is going to matter your resolution and whether or not it's a vector line and all of these things. So in the case of SketchUp, I saved a PDF, and I'm also going to save a JPEG image as well. Now, if I have Illustrator up, I'm going to show you something. For example, I'm coming to 3D Max. Oh, Illustrator is on another screen. Okay, there we go. There you go. Okay, you guys seeing my screen okay?
Yeah, well, I see it, sir.
Okay. Now I have these two files open right here, opening right here. And one of them is a JPEG. And one of them is the Illustrator file. One of them is the PDF. Come on. Okay, there we go. Now here is a PDF file that we open, and it's a PDF. So if you notice that these are actually pixels, but one of the interesting bonuses with SketchUp is that you're able to save out an image that is vector. So for example, this is all 2D vector. So for example, I could select these window areas here, and I could change the color of those windows. Here we go. Right. So for example, I am able to edit this as a vector. No. Now, the other thing is that in Illustrator, I can also, this would have to be if you have a lot of line work. Because if I was to carry the image into Photoshop and use like the paint bucket and those things, in Illustrator, for example, I can say select everything that has select same stroke color, and right then and there I would have select all of the cut lines from my model. You guys seen that?
Yes, sir.
So what happened is that now you have a bit more content, manipulation over the content that comes out as a vector file. So for example, I could say then, okay, I'm going to put these lines on a different layer. Yeah, a layers tab. No, that's not layers. It's not layers. Here is layers. Right. Let's put this somewhere else. Let's close that. Right, so let's say I have my layers tab here. I could make a new layer. And then I could place all of these objects on that new layer. So let me turn off the layer. So that is what I end up with. So I am able to extract content individually, which may be good or bad. It depends on which work you're mimicking. That would depend if you would need a feature like this. But then other little things, for example, Illustrator has its own version of a paint bucket. I don't know if you remember this from DDM days, but you can convert it to a live paint group. And once you do that, then you are now able to like fill these areas with literally any color or, you know, any color or texture that you wish. So for example, right, so for example, maybe that's black, that's there. There we go. And you know, maybe I only want to extract some things from this layer. Like for example, I could say, okay, you know, select anything that is anything that has this fill color, for example, and I'm able to put that on a new layer as well. So I'm just saying that to say that you can get out much more. There we go. And there we go. You're able to get out much more out of a program when you come out as a vector related entity than if it was a JPEG. Because if you wanted to further manipulate this, maybe you have a texture that you want to insert in here. You know, I would come into Illustrator to be able to manipulate the vector line work because I have so much flexibility to do that and at 100% sharpness. So, you know, if I wanted to make changes to this, it would be easier for me to make changes to line work here. And then I would take this maybe into Photoshop. You know, it doesn't mean that, like maybe I want to just manipulate something, then take it into Photoshop. The point that I'm getting at is that I would know I want to extract this data. That would lead me to save out this information in a format that I can get more flexibility from it. So don't always jump to save out a JPEG. Always try with a vector version as well, right? So that is one interesting tip. And the same thing that you can do with that, you can do with Revit as well. Now the other thing to remember when you're doing the mimic is that you also have let's see, you also have the 2D floor plans along with you, and you have them as DWG files. So what does that mean? That means that I can go here to file and I can go to open. Right, and this that I'm using here is Illustrator. I'm just navigating my way to the working files. Okay, here we go. So you've got a DWG 3D file, and you also have a DWG floor plan file as well. So you guys don't need to be drawing the floor plan over from scratch, right? You already have a 2D floor plan. And for some of you, maybe you rather to manipulate that floor plan in AutoCAD. But for some of you, maybe you rather to manipulate it in Illustrator. As a matter of fact, if I wanted to carry this floor plan in Photoshop, I would need to carry it into Illustrator first, and then I'm able to like do more with it. So for example, let's say, by the way, guys, only one floor plan is required. Let me repeat that. For your Mimic, you only need to do one plan, and it's the ground floor. Everybody heard that?
Yes, sir.
You don't need to do all three plans, please. don't waste your time. I know some of you are going to still end up doing all three plans. Oh boy. I feel sorry for those of you. You only need to do a single floor plan. So maybe I come in Illustrator because I have this DWG file and I have a little bit more flexibility with it. So let's say that I'm not trying to do anybody's Mimic here, but first thing, maybe I want to get all the line weights to be the same. You know, because this is a vector program, I can select everything here. So I'm just going to delete these other plans because I don't need them. All right, I'm going to select and I'm going to say make all my lines one dimension. Right? Then there are some of us that just want to get this to a state enough to go into Photoshop. So maybe you want to just clean it up a little. Like for some of you, maybe your floor plans doesn't have the furniture in it that looks like this. So maybe I want to delete this furniture. So what I'm doing now, I'm preparing the floor plan to go into you know, maybe it's Photoshop or wherever. But the first thing I want to do is to prepare the floor plan. So you need to go into a program that you can manipulate the vectors that you have. All right. So that would be either like a AutoCAD or an Illustrator. Now, for some of you, you might want to remain in Illustrator to maybe shading the walls, but maybe some of us have we want to get more texture manipulation from it. So one important aspect that I want you guys to learn about is non-destructive editing. And what does that mean? That means that I can take this work that I've done in Illustrator. I can save it. Forgive me, the computer is a little bit, because I have a lot of stuff open, so yeah. There we go. So let's say I save this on my desktop. There you go. All right. And what you can do is, I don't know if you guys remember the days of DDM. Anybody remember what's called a smart object?
Yes, sir. That's
Oh,
the
yes, sir.
object that cannot be edited.
Right, cannot be edited. But that's the big feature of a smart object.
Write it first before
Oh,
you can edit it.
Say that again? Oh, you're right. You have to rasterize it before you can edit it.
Before you can edit it.
That is true. But the big advantage of a smart object is that you can link one program to another. So for example, this plan that I saved as a Illustrator file, I can link this Illustrator file in Photoshop. So therefore, instead of having a flat plan that I can edit and manipulate and delete, I can just create a kind of link to Illustrator so that any of the vector edits that I want to make from Illustrator, I can do that in Illustrator and the changes will reflect in Photoshop, rather than struggling to manipulate line work in Photoshop. So it's like I can get the best of both worlds. And this concept is called non-destructive editing, because I am not taking a JPEG of the floor plan into Photoshop. Instead, when I open Photoshop, there we go. When I open Photoshop, and let's say that I have a new document, I can go to place, linked file, There we go. And then what I can do is I can select that Illustrator file that I just saved a while ago and open that Illustrator file in Photoshop. Now what happens is that Photoshop will interpret this as a smart object. And what it will do, it will operate under the rules of a smart object. So for example, you can't like erase it or anything, but whenever you make a change in Illustrator, this will automatically update. So now I have this, the kind of best of both worlds, where I can have all the features that that I've come to know and love in Photoshop. So for example, I could add a filter. Give me a filter what you would add in Photoshop, like a let's say you wanted a sketch effect. No, that is boring. How about something else? How about a blur? Maybe you're trying to there's a particular effect that you want to get that involves it being blurred. There you go. Right, and well, what it is doing, it is blurring the image that is coming from Illustrator, which is pretty cool. So there are some effects that you can only find in Photoshop. Like for example, if I wanted to add a blending effect, come on, blending options. Right. And you would only find these options that you can get, you know, things like drop shadow and bevel and color overlay, you know, and stroke and inner shadow, you know, a lot of the effects that maybe you would have been familiar with in Photoshop, maybe, you know, drop shadow, things like that. You can apply that, and you're actually applying it to an object that is linked to Illustrator. So if I needed to now manipulate lines, I don't know if you've ever tried to manipulate line work in Photoshop. I mean, that's if I tried to, for example, open an elevation. Let this just open now. Right. If I have an elevation like this, you know, everything seems fine. You know, it could be that it's a view I exported from SketchUp, or it could be an image that I got from AutoCAD. But if I needed to do something to this that involves, you know, editing the line work, it would basically be a nightmare because these are all pixels, right? And I'm not able to just, select a line and edit a line or something like that. But it would make more sense that I open this image or the vector part of this image in a vector editing program, manipulate it there, and then do all of the 2D like manipulations from Photoshop. All right. Anyway, so this is just one of the tips. There are many other tips, and this is why I'm saying that we're gonna have to like inject some other classes where I can go through some more of these advanced uses. And I want you to get these advanced uses before you actually start applying them. All right. So for your next week class, what I'm going to do is you have a practical on Monday. So we're going to try to see if we can tackle some of these on Monday. Do you guys have a student presentation on Tuesday?
Not really a presentation, sir.
Okay, like a desk script.
No, well, I think it's regular class, but we have the site analysis downtown doing.
Right. So we'll talk more about these advanced techniques on Monday, and we'll look on some more. All right, and then we will go from there. But what I want you guys to do now is I want you guys to analyze the images on your mirror board. And I want you to be able to identify what are the features that your image has. All right? And place that on your mirror board. Okay? Now would be a good time now that you would start to plan out how you plan to create some of these images. And no, this one still is not what we're looking for. I mean, okay, let me not say no. I guess it can pass. I guess so, because I guess the trees are there. Yeah, Jessica.
I
So
just
could you double check my section, please?
you can double check that for me.
Yeah, what I'm going to have to do, because I have another class, so just keep an eye out. And what you can do is if I put an X there, then you need to change it. You need to get those 2 ticks before you can continue. But I need to check it after class because I have to run to another class now. All right.
Yes, sir.
All right, cool. So I'll see you guys again on Monday. All right.
All right, bye, sir.
All right, cool. We'll look on some more tips.
Sir.
Yeah, we'll look on some more advanced tips on Monday. And we'll go from there. Okay, take it easy.
Bye, sir.
All right, sir.